Shall we play a game?
Now, apart from being the sexiest computer hacker I've ever seen, what movie was Agent Romanov actually referencing? Stick around for this review, I think you might like it. Now, WarGames was released in 1983, directed by John Badham, and stars Matthew Broderick, Ali Sheedy, and Dabney Coleman. And yeah, if the title seems a little bit familiar to you, it did cause a bit of controversy upon its release, because if you put it into a bit of an historical context, America and Russia are not best mates. Of course, it doesn't help that you had one of my favorite presidents, Ronald Reagan, at the White House seat, because I'll tell you what, he was gunning for the Russians like anybody else was. But apart from that aside, the film is, it hasn't dated one bit actually, and I'll get to that point later on. But Broderick plays David Lightman, an intelligent but underachieving high school student.
All right, Lightman. Maybe you could tell us who first suggested the idea of reproduction without sex.
Your wife?
Who, when he goes home, doesn't go home to posters of girls on his wall or looks up sports games. He's got a computer setup in there. So this thing is like a hybrid IBM setup. He's got his phone plugged into a modem. So as Ali Sheedy, who is not his girlfriend at this stage of the film, comes home to see him one day, he just shows her around his little man cave. Well, there weren't man caves then as they are now, but he explains to her how computers talk to telephones. It's actually quite intelligently explained in the film. Like, machines talk to machines. They communicate across lines of thousands of lines of code, and it's really, really cool. So Lightman, who is, like me, an avid gamer, decides to hack into the NORAD Combat Operations Center because he's found out about these games that have not been released yet, and he wants to find out what they're like, and he wants to actually play them. He's innocent. He doesn't actually know there's a more sinister purpose behind one of the particular games. So inside this combat center, we have a supercomputer called Whopper. Not that particular Whopper, because as much as I do love Burger King, this Whopper is acronymed as WOPR, War Operation Plan Response. So what this PC on steroids actually does is that it simulates World War III scenarios. Now, through some clever early detective work, Lightman finds out that Whopper is in fact a computer program called Joshua, which was set up by the late Dr. Stephen Falcon. And it is really interesting what happens here, because at first glance, that is having telecommunications through text, but then it turns out that Joshua is quite a sentient being of sorts, and Lightman sees a list of video games that he would like to play. But one of them really sticks out to him more than the others, which is called Thermonuclear War. Already a red flag, but Lightman doesn't see it that way.
Shall we play a game?
Unfortunately, what it turns out to be an innocent video game transpires into real-world events, because all of a sudden the Pentagon, this NORAD military facility, is under red alert. I think at this stage they're at DEFCON 2 or DEFCON 3. And basically they think they're about to plant missiles against Russia, and Russia thinks, well, what the hell's going on here? And turns out it's a false alarm. It's just a simulation machine. It's nothing to worry about. So Lightman gets apprehended by the FBI, is taken to the NORAD headquarters for questioning, and it's quite funny what happens here, because it turns out not only do you have a security guard who is an absolute creeper for one of the employees. Again, I don't believe these things existed in 80s films and probably exist even today. But what Lightman does, he gets the upper hand on his creeper security guard and escapes the facility in a way that is so cleverly done and just so well executed. You have to applaud him for how he gets away. It's just one of the funniest moments in the film for me. Dabney Coleman is a great leading actor in this movie, because he's convinced that his defense system against America, which is controlled by the AI, is the safest way to go. But he's at loggerheads with the general in the movie who doesn't see things that way, because he's less educated than Coleman's character. But it's quite good how the opposing dynamic between these two antagonists are with each other. It's pretty well handled. Now, given the fact this film is 38 years old, 1 year older than The Terminator, which was released a year later, it's an amazing testimony to how well written this movie actually was and still is. The algorithmic language, the binary codes that they use as part of a storytelling device in the film is very well handled, very much up to date. Some of the hacks they use, some of the physical hacks they use, especially when you go to a phone booth, how you can use a ring pull opener from a tin can to make out that you've put a coin into the phone, is, I think you can't do that now, but I'm pretty sure back then you could. It's just very well handled how they showed that. I actually forgot about that hack, to be honest, and I was kind of glad to see it again. I will say the message of the movie, it's really well thought out. How do humans coexist against Mother Nature? Believe it or not, that comes into it, against the scientific and machine-controlled world that we're currently living in. Unfortunately, that's become a reality now. I do like most of what we have at our disposal right now. I'm a man of science more than religious or supernatural beliefs. I have no time for that garbage, but of course I'm not here to disrespect anybody who holds those beliefs. But WarGames by John Badham is a fantastic film, and I can see why the Russo brothers took inspiration from WarGames for that incredible scene in Captain America Winter Soldier with the lovely Natasha Romanoff as played by the equally gorgeous Scarlett Johansson, talking about this particular AI construct, and then of course Armin Zola as played by the awesome Toby Jones makes his reveal. It kind of parallels with what happens in WarGames. I really like the Russo brothers for how they just took a little idea and just expanded it in the MCU. It was really awesome to see.
Hydra's new world order will arise. We won, Captain. Your death amounts to the same as your life. A zero sum. As I was saying,
but WarGames, starring a very likable Matthew Broderick, you can kind of see how he got cast in a more famous role, which I will be reviewing later on. I can kind of see that appeal, and Ali Sheedy is good. She's quite well utilized. I'm kind of glad as well that David Lightman's parents, we only see them for a few scenes, but we don't see them at the end, which is good. We don't need them. It's more about saving the world. There are big stakes at play here, I've got to say, and the relationship between man and computer is, it's a terrifying one. Nostradamus did say we will be overtaken by machines one day, and I guess his prediction actually came true. And now my final rating for John Badham's WarGames. Well, this was a tough one. I haven't really done a half rating before. I'm not about to start right now. But because of that creep factor with that creepy security guard and that weird beret he's wearing and that odd uniform and creeping on that pretty blonde, I've got to give this 4 out of 5 hot dogs. Better luck next time. Now, WarGames from 1983. Have you seen this film? If not, you should watch it, but I'll give you a bit of a friendly warning before you watch this movie, because I've got the Blu-ray right here. It does actually have a thing about flashing images. So if you have any health issues, anything that might trigger you off while watching this movie, in the third act, there will be some flashing images that do appear for a few seconds. But I don't know what's worse, either flashing images or subliminal messages that might turn you into the Manchurian Candidate. Now, if you've seen the original version of that film and the one with Denzel Washington, you know it didn't turn out well for either of those characters. But thank you very much for watching my review for WarGames. It's a great movie. I definitely will watch it again, maybe next year or later on this year, because it's relevant to the society we're living in today. And until next time, on my next retro review, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.